Welcome in, everyone. You can go to the next slide, Peyton. Thank you all for joining us today. Get comfortable, get your notes out, and get ready to discuss the comparison of ECC to S/4HANA's purchasing analysis. You can go to the next slide. Whether you're confident or confused, our supply chain artisans will highlight the differences in possible migration and how you can anticipate your journey. You can go to the next slide again. Today, Wayne and Peyton will take about 30 minutes to guide you through the differences of ECC versus S4's purchasing spend analysis. We encourage you to extend any questions in the question section or chat. We'll have time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you may have. At this time, I would like to introduce you to today's speakers, Peyton and Wayne. Peyton specializes in procurement and overall supply chain process improvement. Wayne specializes in helping supply chains achieve agility and maximize their profits and overall growth. I'll hand you off to them. Welcome in, Peyton and Wayne.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As Peyton and I start this discussion to delve into the world of spend analysis and compare the functionalities that exist between the more traditional SAP ECC environment that many of you have, and as you face the potential migration or installation into the SAP S/4HANA environment. Our focus is really going to be on these platforms and how we cater to spend analysis, which is a crucial aspect of procurement and financial management. Most people probably have the view that spend analysis is just spend analysis after all. Yes, and it is a fundamental capability and not much has changed, but there are some really interesting nuanced changes that I think merit taking a deeper dive into what we can understand. And I really think that warrants a discussion and an examination to uncover and exploit these differences, and particularly as more and more of you are moving from your currently installed SAP ECC environment into the more ubiquitous S/4HANA environment. Let's start by understanding what spend analysis is. Right. Spend analysis, it involves examining our capability as an organization and what the patterns are across different categories, suppliers, and time periods. And it really gives us an insight into some of the key behaviors that the organization is exhibiting. It aids in identifying cost savings opportunities, evaluating supplier performance, and revealing some of the compliance issues that we might be having as an organization.
So SAP ECC, or ERP Central Component, has been a workhorse in the ERP domain for many years, and it offers basic spend analysis capabilities through its materials management, or MM, and financial accounting, or FI modules. So first, let's take a look at how ECC does spend analysis. So ECC allows for spend categorization, providing a high level of expenditures by categories, or high level view of expenditures by categories, such as goods, services, and capital expenses. Users can generate reports. You can see here some of the MC $ reports that show spending patterns, and then you can drill down within those to show transaction level details. And we can see here from some results from a couple of the classic MC $ reports. This one is by purchasing group, and then we've got this one here by material group. And we can switch our drill down or use the drill down by functionality to analyze the data in different ways. And so here I've narrowed it down by, I think I switched it to plant, I can't remember, but we've gone from purchasing group and a little bit broader. And we can even drill down by month and get a time series graphic showing the related spend over time. ECC also gives us ways to evaluate vendor performance. So MC $6 that we see here allows us to see delivery reliability by vendor. And then we've got MC $8, which allows us to see quantity adherence to the purchase order, whether we're over or short. And we can see variances in planned delivery time to actual using the WPDTC report that we see here.
So Peyton, as we look through these slides and listen to what you're saying, I'm sort of getting the impression that the analytics capabilities are somewhat limited in the ECC environment because it relies on a more relational database. And these can often lead to slower query response times when dealing with a large data set. Am I right in that assumption?
So SAP S/4HANA introduces a new era of ERP. It's built on an in-memory database, enabling real-time data processing and analytics. And in the context of spend analysis, S/4HANA provides more advanced features compared to ECC. Its embedded analytics offer interactive dashboards with customizable widgets, providing a dynamic view of spending trends. I don't know if it'd be accurate to describe the ECC capability as limited. It's just a different approach to get at the data, with SAP S/4HANA adding an enrichment and flexibility capability. So as an example, S/4HANA leverages machine learning algorithms to automatically categorize and classify spending data, minimizing the manual effort. So this enhances accuracy and saves time.
Okay. So what I think I heard you say is that the in-memory architecture of S/4HANA significantly enhances our performance, and specifically when it comes to complex queries that might have taken minutes in ECC, now return a result much quicker, in seconds, and allowing us much more in-depth analysis without that user delay that so many of us have experienced.
So when it comes to spend analysis, data integration is crucial. And S/4HANA integrates data from various sources, not just within the ERP, but also external sources, providing a holistic view of spending across the organization. So here we have the procurement overview feature that you get with Fiori and S4, which gives a much broader view of KPIs, or the key performance indicators, and analytic points and reports in one place with more data just a click away with each tile or widget. So everything is running in real time, and each report can be run multiple ways to see different trends and figures, giving procurement professionals a one-stop shop to see the company's overall procurement picture. This overview is actually one of my favorite procurement features we get in Fiori. There's so much information that's accessible from this one tool or area. So going back to ECC, it's capable of integration, but it might require more effort and third-party tools for seamless data consolidation, like we see with Fiori. S/4HANA streamlines that process. S/4HANA offers a modern and intuitive user interface, enhancing the overall user experience. Its Fiori design principles make data exploration and analysis more user-friendly. And we can take a look at some of those features within the procurement overview now. So coming back to our dashboard, I can see out of the gate as a buyer what requisitions I have open. So we have the monitor purchase requisition items here. You can see I've got some old guys because I've built out data in the sandbox that we used for reveal. And so there's some older stuff in there. And I can see what purchase orders are overdue from my monitor purchase orders widget. I can also see any missing confirmations. If I have any open activities requiring action from me, those are available for me here as well. And I'm able to monitor all of my procurement processes and functions from quote to order. And this can help me with real-time housekeeping as I'm trying to, quote unquote, put out any fires that may be happening during the day, and expedite anything that's needed now. So when it comes to spend analysis, oops, sorry, I messed up my own screen. I'm doing great. Going back to spend analysis, I have visibility to that simply from this overview, and you can quickly change how the analysis is run from the widget dropdown. So for me on my screen, of course this is a screen grab, but I'm able to change here. I can change it to analysis by supplier, or I can change it to analysis by material group, and I can see that line graph from my overview page. But if I click into the widget, the number of ways that I can look at the data increases exponentially. So here's what you will see if you click into that purchasing spend analysis tool, and you're initially looking at a trend of actual versus planned spend. If I use up here, if I click on show many tiles, it says hide because I've already clicked it in this case. I can see some different statistics and also see how the report is filtering my data. So in this case, I'm looking at the previous year to date, which we see right here under relative date function. I can see how my overall spend for the entire purchasing organization has gone. And I also have visibility on scheduling agreement spend and contract adherence, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the webinar. But all of those stats are right here for me. What I can see through this tool can be changed a multitude of ways. So let's look at changing the drop down. I'll show you two menu buttons here where we've got trend here, and here is the chart button. If we change that trend drop down, I'm able to choose a number of ways to categorize the purchasing spend over time, whether it's by supplier, purchasing group, document. There's a whole host of choices. And for ECC, this would have required using multiple T codes to pull all of that data together. If I click the chart button that I showed you earlier, I'm able to decide what kind of chart I want to use. How do I want to view this data? Do I want a bar? Do I want a pie? Do I want a line? And what the categories and axes of the chart will be as well can be selected. That's our middle area, and how we want that data sorted. You can also monitor what's referred to as non-managed spend in Fiori. This is spend paid by invoice that wasn't paid against a purchase order. So we have a ton of reporting customization that's available with Fiori. And ECC, while functional, it might appear dated in comparison and could require additional training for users migrating from traditional systems. Another process Fiori streamlines for us is contract monitoring and management. So we'll look at this enhanced process in a second. ECC has programs like ME3L and ME80RN that help us monitor contracts, but it isn't so simple to track adherence and expiration. And Fiori changes that. From the overview, I can see some basic KPIs, but I can see even more again by clicking into the widget. And you can see here we've got our monitor purchase contracts widget, and we also have this category of off contract spend. So I filtered my list here by purchasing organization for just over a calendar year. And I can see what's still active, what's expired, which to me is just a huge leg up when looking at Fiori. It's so easy to see when contract expiration is coming and how much of each contract that I've used to date. Single clicking on the quantity or value contract link that we see right here will show a host of options to manage those contracts. Actually clicking into the contract itself gives me even more reporting related to that specific document. So I can go through the categories that we see at the top: general information, delivery and payment terms, all of this. I can single click on those and get to those areas, or I can just scroll down and it will take me through each of them one by one. There's a new feature we have here, contract consumption and leakage, that I've highlighted, that lets me see how much of the contract has been used and what's called leakage. SAP tracks contract leakage as POs created for material or materials on that have a contract, but the PO was not assigned to that contract. So this can help flag potential process errors or let us have visibility to material purchases that may not pertain to the contract for one reason or another. If I single click on the leakage value, which I've shown here, it'll even show me what orders seem like they should have gone against the contract but didn't, so that I can review that. I can also specifically analyze off-contract spend, or just items that I've purchased that don't go against any contract. And by going into that widget in the overview, I can get a look at the applicable data and change the analysis data and appearance just as I can any of the other spend analysis reports. So here it's showing me off contract spend by material group. So everything I've bought for these groups that I've purchased off contract without an outline agreement is in orange, and the things that I've bought on an outline agreement are in, the percentage is in orange, the amount is in blue. So S4 gives us some great new tools in procurement spend analysis. And as technology evolves, S4 is better positioned to adapt. SAP strategic focus has shifted to S4HANA with ongoing updates and innovations tailored to modern business needs.
Wow, that's really impressive. I can remember in my time in various businesses, specifically exposed to purchasing, the amount of time and effort we used to spend in trying to get some of this data together. And often you had to rely on a really skilled person to support you. Here it seems as though it's almost user intuitive in so many ways, but great development. As we know that ECC's mainstream support is coming to an end, and SAP recommends migrating to S4HANA to ensure access to the latest features, security patches, and support. And in conclusion, then, I suppose the question is both SAP ECC and SAP S4HANA addresses spend analysis. But in the S4HANA space, it emerges that it is much more robust and future ready as a solution, which is really exciting to see. As a reminder, it's an in-memory architecture, has really advanced analytics, as Peyton has so ably demonstrated here for us. And its integration capabilities and user experience provides a significant advantage over the ECC environment, especially for organizations aiming to make data-driven decisions in real time. And I think that's the crux. Increasingly, we are finding that people want to respond to data in the moment rather than wait until somebody does some offline data analysis for us. By the time you get your data back, it's actually redundant or out of date, and your decision might be compromised by the fact that you've waited so long to get the result. We must emphasize, however, that the choice between ECC and S4HANA should be made based on an individual need of the organization and your considerations. And this discussion was intended really to provide an overview and just highlight some of those nuanced differences. And we really do recommend consulting with one of our experts to make an informed decision as you consider your options in this. And so before we end today, and of course, thank you for joining us, we'd like to understand if there are any specific questions that we can address for you.
I get some questions here. The first one is from David. He asked, is Fiori standard with all S4 implementations?
So again, is Fiori standard with all S4 implementations? I think the Fiori apps are part and parcel of the S4 environment, Peyton, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. They do. I mean, there's a lot of those S4, a lot of those Fiori apps come what I would call out of the box, available to you as default, but you also have the ability and the capability to develop some of your own tiles and reporting mechanisms,
right,
with a bit of skill and expertise that can also be achieved. Yeah.
Awesome. The next question we have is from Manuel. He said, we recently enabled late locking. With that, we lost active updating of some of the LIS structures key to running some of the MC reports. Now we are struggling to find a Fiori app that can help us get the days on hand / range of coverage reporting. Any ideas of which apps could help us achieve that?
Wow, that's a really detailed question.
That sounds like an LIS reporting question.
Yeah. So I'm going to respond in two ways. One is that in the S4 environment, you can, through configuration, still get access to some of the LIS features that were in the ECC environment. But it does require configuration and an effort from your support crew to enable you to do that. That said, we must be cognizant of the fact that in the long run, in the direction of travel for SAP is not to support the LIS structure. So it comes with a health warning, but in the interim, you can still rely on your LIS structures, but it does take some configuration in the background to facilitate that. To identify which apps you might be wanting to look at, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure Peyton will hold me honest here, in the old ECC environment, there were more than 38,000 T codes. There's just no ways you have anybody in any environment who can remember exactly what all of those are. And a similar landscape exists with Fiori. It takes research and understanding to achieve what you want to get out of it. And it means your experts that you have available to you or access to would have to go and do some research for you, understand your requirements, and then identify those apps that you can use. The fact that you want to know what range of coverage is, I'm almost guaranteed that there is an app that'll get that for you. What that app is called, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I cannot answer right now. Peyton, any idea? You know the space much better than I do.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Thanks, guys. The last question we have is, as a category sourcing specialist that is used to working in SAP ECC and will soon migrate to S/4HANA, what are the main opportunities that I can look forward to?
So I think the most significant capability that you would find value in is, as Peyton has already touched on, is the contract compliance, the spending behavior, and the expiration visibility. It's just so much easier to get to terms with that. I can remember a while ago when we were wrestling with a high contract environment, the amount of time and effort it took to get our understanding of things like compliance of contracts, when contracts were expiring, how much we spent against those contracts and everything like that. It really was doable, but it was a heavy lift. In the S4 environment, it is so much easier to get to that kind of analysis, and it's really user driven. It's at your desktop. You can do it yourself. You don't have to rely on a specialist to support you to get to that level of detail. Anything you'd like to add, Peyton?
I think maybe the other thing we get sort of on the spend analysis side that we have easier access to is, before in ECC, when we did MC dollar sign reports, a lot of times what we'd be looking at was simply purchase order dollars. We didn't see scheduling agreement dollars. Yeah. And now we see that. And that's been a lot of people's resistance to using scheduling agreements, which, by the way, I love. I'm happy to tell anyone why they're awesome. But I think that's been one of the resistances. The reporting is not as good, and now we see them together, which is a big change.
Much more inclusive. And I think the other thing that it bears thinking about, and probably where most people struggle a little bit with the S4 environment, is what is this notion of the GUI, the traditional user interface, and the Fiori app. I think the Fiori app is what I would call the day-to-day user experience is much more intuitive, much more friendly, much more capable, and people get used to it very quickly. That said, I think the more, and I'm hesitant, the more robust user, the person who's the more analytical, the person who needs to get to the really nitty-gritty detail of something, the person who's going to do the troubleshooting, the root cause analysis, you would find those users would probably start off in Fiori, but as they start getting to the limits of the data in front of them, they would then start reverting, say, okay, for this more detailed analysis, I'm probably going to have to go into the GUI interface environment, where you can do a lot more of the more intricate data table analysis that is available. Right. Peyton, would you agree with that, right?
Yeah, I even found myself, as I was putting all of this together, using Fiori and the GUI side by side.
Yes, yeah.
To get to different functionalities. So for me, the Fiori the daily cadence and how it supports that is huge. So if I'm in the GUI and then I'm having to go, do my housekeeping, go to ME 57, 58, 59, the same T-code transactions. But if I'm in Fiori, all of that's in front of my face, all in one place with the procurement overview for me to go in and handle my day-to-day.
Yeah, great point, actually. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you guys. And then as a follow-up question, like a sub-question to that question that we just had, how does it improve day-to-day as a buyer?
So that's kind of, I touched on that a little bit a second ago, but it really is about simplification of the daily cadence to me. So a day in the life of a buyer now, we're going to do our housekeeping, we're going to find our exceptions, and we're going to do our move-ins, move-outs, cancels if we can, reschedule according to the plan if things have changed. And then we're going to go into our ME 57, 58, 59, process those requisitions, do any scheduling agreement releases that we may need to do. Those are all different transaction codes, all different functionalities, where we're pulling different things in and executing different processes. Whereas in Fiori, the overview of everything I need to see is in one place, and I can almost do my housekeeping from there because I can see exactly what POs are overdue today. I can see what requisitions need my attention, and I can go in and process all of those from that screen as well through follow-on functions. And so it puts everything I need to execute those order or source to pay processes, almost at order to cash, which is entirely different. The source to pay processes in front of my face in one place, so I don't have to keep going /in ME57, /in MD07. It's all right there.
Yeah. It's one workspace that you get to start your day with instead of having to remember to go to all these different environments as a checklist kind of approach. Yeah. And it's so intuitive as well. Just
Right.
that original landing page is just so intuitive if you set it up for yourself appropriately. Yeah.
And you don't just see that it's overdue, you see how overdue it is. Like there's certain, you can get KPI graphs right there without even going into anything. So that's a great functionality.
Yeah.
Right, that was all the questions we had for today. Thank you both Peyton and Wayne for sharing your knowledge with us around purchasing spend analysis features compared to ECC versus S/4HANA. We want to let everyone know about our next webinar with new functional areas, the business guide to S4 versus ECC S&OE process on February 21st. This webinar will explore how to manage the short-term horizon for experts who will compare contract key points that you need to know. Today's webinar will be available later today on our website under the Insights tab. You will also be able to find all previously recorded webinars and other educational content, such as white papers, blogs, client successes, etc. on there. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. And please, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you want any elaboration on any of this, any further questions, anything you thought of at the end of this webinar, we are happy to assist you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye now.